You guys already know that I talk about XRP quite a bit on this channel, and that's because I have been holding XRP for years now. It's actually coming up on almost 9 years to be exact, and if we're thinking about this space and just some of the legitimate projects in this space as well, XRP is definitely at the top of that list because it's been around for well over a decade plus. It's been really kind of connected to some of the biggest names out there, and of course, Ripple pioneering XRP as the foundation to their network. We already know that that's a huge vote of confidence. Now, crypto is still very early. We know that that is the case. We know that crypto is still in its infancy. We don't even have regulations for crypto. But I still think that during this time, we should 100% be focused on projects that revolve around some of these long-term assets, like, for an example, XRP. I bring this up because of Axelar, right? Obviously, by the title of this video, you know that I am going to be talking about Axel or Axelar. Now, recently, this chart did make a new all-time low with the market sell-off. It's pretty clear going back and looking at this chart. Axelar still remains one of those projects that I am very bullish on. I know that the chart is telling us otherwise, right? The chart is extremely bearish. We did hit a new all-time low on the 10th, right? And since then, we've just been kind of chopping on this chart. I do have the TradingView chart open, which we'll talk about here in a second. But what really, turned my eye to Axelar was the partnership announcement back in 2024, right? That's where Ripple and Axelar Foundation partnered to enhance the XRP Ledger's interoperability across blockchains. And this was driving tokenization initiatives, DeFi initiatives, things like that. And again, during that time, I wasn't really a huge, fan of Axelar simply because I didn't do enough research. But this did allow me to research Axelar more and more and more. And even now, we also know that on the 24th, HBAR actually got connected into the ITS with Axelar, which is their this is their Interchain token service, which is all based around tokenization and just really kind of building out an interoperability stack around tokenization. And this did incorporate the Hedera HTS service as well as the entire network into it. Big shout out to HBAR Tata for this. But yeah, this was definitely a big one. And it was just another huge chain added to the Axelar platform, which already has a ton of top tier networks, already added to it. But this is just another project that we do talk about, that we do support on the channel, that got added to the Axelar stack. So again, we are constantly seeing more and more legitimate large names being added to Axelar. And at this moment, I feel like almost everyone has kind of given up on Axelar simply because of the price performance, which I get it, right? I'm not going to sit here and force your hand to, hold Axelar or anything like that. But I will say, I've seen a lot of projects get completely hammered down to the lows. Another great project that we could bring up that kind of has a very similar structure right now is Algorand. So let me find Algorand. Here we have it, right? So Algo did create an all-time low back in 2023. Here we have it, right? So here's the all-time low on the price chart going down to like 9.5 cents. I know that this doesn't seem like an all-time low because we have these wicks, but these are scam wicks back here. Almost on every single major exchange, you would not see these lows. So Algo did make a new all-time low. Then it did, bounce back a bit back in December of 2024. We did hit a high of like 60.5 cents or so. And then we sold off and now we're just kind of ranging. I bring this up because I want you guys to understand that all-time lows don't mean the death of a project right out of the gate, right? We could see all-time lows and we could still see these charts bounce back. The biggest problem with Axelar that I will say that's kind of holding the price down a bit is the fact that we do have token unlocks, and this is going to last all the way until 2026, roughly the end of 2026, December 2nd. But if we're looking at this, right, it's not a crazy amount of inflation. A lot of people were saying like, oh, this is the reason why the price sucks. No, I mean, if we're thinking about this, right, 1% of the supply will be added by the end of December. It's not a crazy inflation rate at all. And it's something that I don't really think is driving the value of Axelar down. In fact, I just think that this market has sucked for quite some time. for a lot of altcoins. And you might be saying, well, what about, XRP? XRP has performed very well because this is what the 1 week looks like. We did hit a high back in July, but this is just an outlier, right? Most projects did not hit a new high since going back to December and even January. If we're looking at Axelar, right? Now looking at this on the 1 week, here we have that run up into November. We did hit a high of like $1.13, and then it was just downhill from there. Most of the altcoin market got absolutely wiped since back in December and January. So I'm not going to hold it against Axelar at all. I don't think that, Axelar is one of the only projects that is experiencing this. There is a ton of projects that are in the slums, if you will, because again, I'm calling this the slums because we are absolutely at rock bottom essentially on a lot of these charts, and it's because altcoins have been getting washed. Now, with that in mind, looking at the price chart, I do want to see a little bit more out of Axel. I would love to see that. So far we did break this downtrend. We did hit a nice little area of resistance right around like 18.5 cents. Since then we did hold the trend line. We did bounce off of it. I would like to see this continue and for us to flip that 18.5 cent zone roughly, and then target these two key highs here. We are not out of the water yet though. We still need to reclaim the support zone here. That support zone is, of course, our 2025 support around 28.5 cents. After we reclaim 28.5 cents, then we have, some nice highs to target. Obviously, the first one being this like 34-cent zone. And more so like looking at this on the weekly, I would argue is like the best way to kind of look at this. So, just kind of looking at this initial high would be around roughly this 40, it's almost 40 cents, like 38 cents. Then after that, we would look at like 46 cents. And then after that, we also have another significant wick here around roughly 62, 63 cents. We want to see a weekly candle close over all of these major candle bodies here. So closing over this 43 and almost a half cent zone, that would be a huge signal that Axelar is breaking out and going to continue higher. So we have a lot of work to do here. However, it is a good start on the chart to where we are currently. I want to see a little bit more here. And also, by the way, most of these altcoin charts, if you throw on RSI on October 10th, most of them hit their most oversold levels since going all the way back here to like 2024 and even prior. And even looking at this on like the 3-day structure or even on the 1 week, it's also very similar. Axelar actually hit the most oversold level since going all the way back to 2023 on the 3-day. And then also on the 1 week, most oversold level since going all the way back to October of 2023 as well. So I don't think that now would be the time to be just saying, all right, well, that's it, Axelar is dead, especially considering the fact that back here in October of 2023, where we did hit some of these lows, this was at an all-time low. RSI was completely flatlined, and then we saw it come back and hit a high of $2.70. So again, I'm still looking at Axelar. I'm still focused on Axelar, especially considering the fact that, it is tied back to some of the, top tier projects that we talk about on a day-to-day basis. And by the way, addressing that when it comes back to XRP, we did just see a big update from E-Man over on X. This is regarding the volume of the Interchain XRP transfers. We do see here that the volume of Interchain XRP transfers facilitated through the Axelar has passed $138 million, with nearly 26,000 transactions recorded to date. The integration of Axelar's Interoperability protocol for XRP interchain transfers brings substantial benefits to the XRP ecosystem, its holders, and Ripple itself. Previously confined primarily to the XRP Ledger, the XRP token can now connect to nearly 80 different blockchains, including, of course, Hedera, via Axelar, effectively removing its isolation and transforming XRP into a more globally accessible digital asset. With a market capitalization exceeding $133 billion, XRP holders can now leverage a wide range of DeFi protocols, including lending, borrowing, staking, and yield farming, through assets such as MXRP, which offers stable returns across interoperable networks. And yeah, I mean, listen, this is a huge update. And by the way, this value was hit since going back to July. So in just roughly 4 months, we have witnessed over $138 plus million in transfers. This is very, very exciting. And also, it's a clear confirmation of just how crucial Axelar is to some of these ecosystems. Yeah, the XRP Ledger, in terms of DeFi, let's just be honest here, has lacked completely. So now that we're starting to see some of these networks like Axelar making sure that DeFi on some of these extremely large networks can become a reality, it, in my opinion, makes Axelar a crucial piece of the Web3 future, which is, what I really kind of look at when investing into some of these projects. I look at what is the viability of these projects. Is this project a crucial infrastructure player, if you will? And Axelar, in my opinion, does check those boxes. I really do think that Axelar is a huge piece of the puzzle. And then also, if we're thinking about some of the recent announcements with Ripple, like for example, the one with Mastercard, if you guys didn't miss this was Mastercard announced a partnership with Ripple and Gemini to explore using the ROUSD stablecoin on the XRP Ledger blockchain to settle traditional credit card transactions. The collaboration could become one of the first cases where a regulated US bank settles fiat transactions on a public blockchain using a compliant stablecoin. And if we're thinking about this with what did get announced with Mastercard with Axelar back in 2023, I find it very interesting that a lot of the connections back to Axelar with Ripple are kind of aligned perfectly. Now, this was Mastercard taps Axelar for Start Path program. This was definitely a big one. Obviously, I am fully focused on some of these older partnerships with Axelar because they are still active today. And of course, yes, we do have the posts from Mastercard themselves here. We have embracing new ways to transact by unleashing the power of blockchain. Of course, this did include multiple fintech players. We do have all of them down here. Axelar is a crucial player here in terms of that interchain communication between traditional players and even all applications within any chain. And then also, if we're looking at institutional interoperability, why all of these networks being connected back to Axelar is a crucial thing. We know that tokenization is a huge deal. And if we look at the spotlight names that are in this document, we have Citi, Deutsche Bank, Mastercard, Northern Trust, and Centrifuge. This is presented by Axelar and Metrica. We have tokenized assets could be a $16 trillion opportunity if only they are interoperable. And all of these big names, they came together to have these insights on the need for interoperability in tokenized assets, spotlighting paths and decisions each has implemented. And yeah, listen, interoperability is so crucial. I've focused on it even with Quant. Now, Axelar is a little bit different in terms of what they offer because what they're offering in terms of interoperability is multi-chain interoperability. Multi-chain interoperability that can connect to traditional networks. It's a big deal, and I always said that this is going to be a multi-chain future anyways. So Axelar, in my opinion, is crucial technology. Now, also on top of that, I do want to go back to this announcement with Ripple, right? This is all based around stablecoin adoption and settlement. Why is that important? Well, because again, if we're going back to what Axelar is doing with XRP, obviously one of the biggest ones was MXRP. Everyone is still talking about it in terms of DeFi. But if we are going to Axelar's X account and we're just scrolling down slightly, okay, I want to go to their stablecoin discussion here, which was for years, dollar stablecoins lived in a regulatory gray zone, multi-billion-dollar markets built within clear rules on reserves, yield, or audits. With the signing of the US Genius Act, that era came to an end. Now, they do list all of the stablecoins here in terms of the 9 stablecoin innovators over time. Obviously, Ripple with ROUSD is one of the newer ones. But we have here that the Genius Act has moved stablecoins from policy debate to business reality. Banks, asset managers, and fintechs finally have what they wanted, a green light to issue, integrate, and transact with tokenized dollars on public blockchains. The results, staggering. Since the bill's passage, the total stablecoin supply has jumped 17% in less than 3 months, pushing the market past 300 billion. JP Morgan moved its deposit token to Base. Deutsche Bank published a blueprint to tokenize any asset. Even Walmart and Amazon are rumored to be exploring stablecoins of their own as well. The message is clear. The on-chain future of money isn't theoretical anymore, it's operational. The firms that treat interoperability and multi-chain issuance as strategy, not experiments, will define the next decade of digital finance. And yes, this is where these interoperability stacks like Axelar also become a crucial piece. Stablecoin issuance, stablecoin adoption, stablecoin payments, tokenization, all of that stuff requires interconnectivity. So that's why multi-chain initiatives like what Axelar is providing is still a huge piece of the puzzle for the long-term future ahead. Yeah, are we going through a storm right now? 100%. Listen, the price chart sucks. I hate to see it as well. I did buy on October 10th a little bit more Axel, and that's simply because I do think that this thing will bounce back completely. It's just the fact that right now, most of this market sucks. And XRP is like an outlier, right? It has performed back in July, but most altcoins, even if we go and just look at HBAR for an example, right? HBAR back in July didn't make a new high. Okay, yeah, it might not be making new all-time lows, but it still didn't make a new high back in July. It's been well over 10 months. And a lot of altcoins are like this. I could just pick out, for an example, like Chainlink, right? Let me just grab Chainlink real quick. On the 1 week back in August, it still didn't make a new high compared to its December highs. Even Solana, let's grab Solana real quick. On the 1 week, okay, we still didn't make a new high, even going all the way back to January with our recent push. Most altcoins still have yet to create new highs. ADA is another perfect example of this. In fact, ADA wicked all the way back down into almost the levels in which it was trading back in October, completely wiping out all of the gains of the December push. So again, the altcoin market got completely rinsed. So it's very, expected to have extremely bearish moves on these price charts. However, I don't want it to affect fundamentals because the fundamentals are still there. Obviously, Axel is still a high risk, high reward project, and it could easily go to zero. That's still a possibility, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of why would Ripple partner up with Axel? Why would we see all of these major moves happening around XRP with Axel if this wasn't becoming a crucial player in the evolution of institutional DeFi and tokenization initiatives? And again, I'm coming to the conclusion that Axelar is crucial tech. Ripple sees this. Almost all of these big networks and companies in this space also see that. And then also when we are looking at the complete breakdown of the ecosystem, I mean, the ecosystem is absolutely stacked. There is so many projects building on Axelar or even connected into Axelar that allows them to connect to 80 plus different blockchains. So again, Axelar is a big project in this space. I do think that it will become a very large project in this space as well. In my opinion, it is crucial Web3 tech, and we'll circle back at some point in time in the future. And hopefully, this works out. Obviously, I can't predict the future, but just going off of everything that we have studied here, everything that we have gone over in terms of the information that we are offered, I really do think that Axelar is going to be a big player, especially if you hold XRP. I mean, so far, it's been doing very good for XRP through MXRP, through the DeFi connections. And I do think that this is only going to become, a much bigger deal for the XRP ecosystem, even with some of the recent announcements as well, which I might go over in a future video as well. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.